Chapter 32, April 1979, Planning to Cross the Ocean. The April winds carry a strange coolness that year in Rạch Giá. It was as if the sky itself had withdrawn its warmth, holding its breath for a fate that was about to unfold. It was the second time in less than a year that our parents had to make the most painful decisions, to let go of another joy, to gamble once more with destiny, to push love into the sea with nothing but hope and prayer to hold it afloat. This time it was Anh Thanh Hưng. He was only 22, barely a man in years, yet the weight of survival had already pressed him into adulthood too soon. His eyes, still carrying the shimmer of youthful dreams, had learned to dim themselves beneath the gray skies of postwar Vietnam. He was restless like so many of us, restless in the country where youth meant silence, where dreams were considered crimes, and where the future seemed written only in shadows. Our parents had watched chị Thanh Hoa living first, had borne the piercing ache of separation, and had endured the sleepless nights away for a single telegram that she had reached land alive. When the news finally came from Pulau Bidong, the relief was so sharp it cut through their sorrow for a brief moment. They knew then that one joy had escaped the choking soil of their homeland, but it also gave them courage, dangerous, necessary courage to risk it all again. And so, on that cool day of April 1979, our mother quietly packed a small bundle of gold, the exact same amount she had once carried for chị Thanh Hoa. The path was the same, the fear was the same, the prayers were the same, only the joy's face were different. A road to Rạch Giá, mother and Anh Hưng set out before dawn. The mist clung to the fields as they walked side by side, with silence heavier than words. She carried the weight of 2 words, the unbearable burden letting him go and the fragile duty of giving him a chance to live. The road stretched long and familiar. She had walked it before, her heart already broken once. The same corners, the same checkpoints, the same whispers of suspicion from strangers who seemed to know too much of or nothing at all. She kept her face calm, her movements steady, her eyes downcast, as though she were only a mother escorting her son to some ordinary errand. But inside, her heart raced as though every sound was a signal of betrayal, every shadow a lurking shoulder, every breath a risk. When they finally reached the outskirts of Rạch Giá, the salty scent of the sea rushed into their lungs. It was the smell of both freedom and fear. It was the smell of gamble with fate. They approached the hidden path that led to the shore. There, waiting under the cover of swaying palms, was the man everyone knew only as Bác Tám. His wrinkled face, stern eyes, and curt gestures betrayed nothing of compassion. He was not there to feel, he was there to control the gate between captivity and escape. Mother pressed the gold into his hand, It was the same ritual as before, gold in exchange for silence, gold in exchange for a place on a fragile boat, gold for the chance to leave. Waiting at the shore, the boat rocked softly against the shallow waves, its wooden hull creaking like tired bones. Dozens of faces already filled its cramped deck. Some were lined with age, some still raw with childhood, some hardened with scars of battle, but every pair of eyes carried the same expression, a mixture of fear and desperate hope. Anh Hưng stood with his bundle, waiting for his name. His heart hammered in his chest as its name was called. The air was thick with suspense, each second stretching longer than the last. He tried to steady his breathing, tried not to let his hands tremble, but his body betrayed him. He stole glances at Mother. Her face was calm, but her eyes revealed a storm of emotions. She looked at him with the intensity of something trying to memorize every detail, the youngest son in the family. She knew that this might be the last time she would ever see him. She tried to hold her tears, for tears could attract unwanted attention, but her lips quivered ever so slightly, and her hands clutched the fabric of her albaba as if to hold herself together. Then, finally, a name called out, Hưng. The moment arrived too fast, too sharp. He felt his knees weaken. For a split second he hesitated. Was it truly his name, or just the echo of someone else? But before he could falter, the boat began to pull away, the planks groaning as the tide urged for it forward. Something inside him snapped with urgency. He leaped, his feet barely touching the wooden side, his body thrust forward into the uncertain embrace of the sea-bound vessel. The image that burned the soul. From the deck he turned. Then there was Mother. She had waded into the water, her albaba soaked, her chest submerged, her arms waving with frantic desperation. She was no longer composed. She was no longer careful. She was a mother at the edge of loss, her cries swallowed by the waves, her face contorted with pain beyond words. That image seared itself into Anh Hưng heart. It pierced him with a sorrow so unbearable that he could not contain it. Tears blurred his vision, yet he refused to look away. He wanted to burn her face into his memory, to carry her with him across the sea, to never let that last wave of her hand dissolve into nothingness. Slowly the boat drifted further. The image of Mother's shank dissolved into the haze of salt and mist until it became a blur in his tears, and then she was gone. Into the vast ocean, the sea stretched out endlessly, indifferent to the small wooden vessel daring to cross it. Inside the boat, silence reigned, broken only by groans of wood and crashing of waves. No one spoke of the pirates, but everyone thought of them. The rumors had spread for months. Thai pirates who waited along the trade routes, who robbed refugee boats for their gold, who tore families apart, who violate women with cruelty. For 10 days the boat carried them forward. The sun scorched their backs daily, and the cold knocked at their bones by night. Thirst became a constant companion. Hunger a dawn ate, Children whimper, mothers whisper prayers, and men stare into the horizon as if trying to will land into existence. And through it all, Anh Hưng clung to the last image of mother, her body submerged in water, her arms waving, her face torn with sorrow. It was both his torment and his strength. Of the 10th day, as dawn broke with a pale light, a shape emerged on the horizon. It was not another boat, not a pirate ship, but land. The island of Song La is just off the coast of Thailand. The boat staggered toward it, and when their feet finally touched the sand, some collapsed in tears, others fell in their knees, others simply stared at the earth beneath them as though it were a miracle they have survived for now. Meanwhile, in Vietnam, back home, the air grew heavier with each passing day. Our parents, though relieved that Thanh Hoa was safe in Pulau Bidong, lived in a gnawing anxiety. Another joy was at sea, Anh Hưng. Another heartbeat were floating somewhere between life and death. They had no telegram, no message, no certainty, only silence. Father grew older overnight. His back bent lower, his hair gray faster. Mother moved like a shadow, her daily chores performed in silence. At night, she lay awake, replaying the image of Anh Hưng leaping into the boat, replaying the sun burning her skin as she waved deeper, replaying the final blur of his face as the boat drifted away. She whispered his name into the dark, as if her voice could carry across the waves to him. The second escape from Anh Tong. At the same time, another plan was quietly forming. This time it was Anh Tong. He was determined not to leave his fate to others. He would build his own chance with his own hands, gathering friends, gathering courage, gathering what little resources he could. He prepared a boat. 37 souls entrusted themselves to his leadership. 37 dreams bowed to a single fragile vessel. The sea, however, was merciless. Their boat floated, water seeping into its seams, its fragile belly swollen with the weight of fear. Pirates came again and again. They robbed them of what little they had, stripping away gold, the food, the dignity, once, twice, more times than they could count, until finally, weary of their suffering, the pirates tore the broken boat and abandoned it on the shore of Pattani. They lived, they survived, came at a cost. Across the ocean, the arrival of Thanh Hoa. Meanwhile, in America, the waiting stretched like eternity. 5 long months has passed since chị Thanh Hoa last letter. Each day the family in Mountain View looked forward the mailbox with both dread and hope. And then in June 1979, the waiting ended. She arrived at the San Francisco airport. That day was filled with faces, but for us it was only her we saw, thin, sunburned, and her eyes tired yet shining. She stepped into our arms. The reunion was not grand but loud. It was full of tears, of trembling embraces, of unspoken words. A small apartment in Mountain View grew warmer that day. Another sister was home. Another piece of the broken family was restored. Only for one night the laughter returned, the stories poured out, the memories of Pulau Bidong mingled with a new sense of America. But even in the joy, there was an empty chair at the table. There were faces missing. There were names whispered into prayers. The weight of waiting. Vietnam, Thailand, America. 3 words. 3 fragments of the same family, stretched across oceans, tied together only by memory, by longing, by fate. Mother in Saigon, her eyes fixed on the horizon of her mind, waiting for news of Anh Hưng. Anh Hưng in Songkla, haunted by her image, is clinging to survival. And Tong in Pattani, battered with pirates, yet still breathing. Chị Thanh Hoa in America, finally said, yet torn by knowledge of those still lost at sea. And the rest of us, living between joy and sorrow, between arrivals and departures, between hope and despair. It was April 1979, and the story of our family was still being written on the restless waters of the South China Sea. This is the end of chapter 32, to be continued.
Tell me all about this name, and it's difficult to say. It was given me the day I was born. Want to know about the stories of the empire of old? My eyes see